And welcome inside the Backstage Pass here, of course, for a Wednesday, almost St. Patrick's Day. That's coming up tomorrow, too. So happy early St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. Hard to believe it's the middle of March. And if you're a sports fan like me, you've been glued to the television for a lot of things: NFL free agency, and, of course, March Madness and baseball season starting back up for Major League Baseball and a whole lot more. And, of course, we'll have more on that coming up on the Outlaw Fantasy Show with myself and CJ at some point this week. Riding shotgun here, of course, today. With a guy who is very well known in the music industry, too, at the same time, as we're presented by Bangtail Whiskey, MitchMax.com, and, of course, our good friends over at Hank Jr. Productions. It is the Backstage Pass. And pleased to welcome in a critically acclaimed singer-songwriter. He's on a mission. He's doing his thing. Dann Rogers joins us here on the program. Dan, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I was looking forward to this.
Yes, sir. We appreciate the time, too, as well. No doubt about it, brother. Hey, talk about this. I want to get the Houston roots and talk about that. Being from there, LaPorte High School, we were talking a little bit before the show. And, of course, musical name, that last name is very synonymous with being the nephew of the great Kenny Rogers, and God rest his soul. He contributed so much to the music industry and country music in general. I guess just talk about, growing up in that household with that last name and being synonymous in the music industry, that this is probably something from an early age you probably were hooked on, right?
Yeah. My dad went into the music business on the day I was born. He got fired from his job selling clothes to go to the hospital with my mom while she had me because he thought family was first. And so the next day he got a job selling phonograph records and then promotion man to radio stations, and then produced and owned labels. So my sandbox I grew up in was radio station control rooms, watching him promote records to DJs and having him go, "Be quiet now." The guy on the air and sitting there, and then going to him recording studios and watching the musicians come together and the production. And then, of course, his office, sitting behind his big desk when I was young, feeling like, wow, I'm in the music business. So I tell everybody, I just followed my family, into the family business, and I inherited my talent the old-fashioned way. It was given to me and passed down. And yeah, I was born in Houston, so my early memories are of Houston. And then we moved to LA, where my dad was in business. And then we moved back to LaPorte, Texas, where I went to spend some high school there, and then on to Nashville. And so I'm somewhere between a hippie and a hick. I'm between LA and Nashville. I'm a hickey. Somewhere between LA and Nashville is where I've spent my whole life. Nashville's a second home to me. I know every inch of this place. I've lived all over. LA is the same way. I wound up in Newport Beach, where I met my wife, and so I'm pretty much living in a nice little bubble out there. But so that was my beginnings growing up, watching my uncle play in bands, watching my dad discover talent like Mickey Gilley, and growing up in Mickey's house playing with his kids. It was a pretty cool neighborhood to get to grow up in.
Yeah, talk about that story, because just how much he contributed to the industry, and so many hits. And, of course, 3-time Grammy, 6-time CMA Award winner, what he meant, the relationships he made in the industry, things that will live on now that are just like great hits of the 90s country era that are what I call timeless classics. Just his story and, what it was like to be alongside someone who is now an idol in the industry.
Very much so. And you know what? I'll say this about my uncle. I loved him and he loved me. We were close. He wrote me a letter one time. I thanked him. I wrote him a letter after my dad died and said, "I know you picked up the tab for the funeral expenses." He just jumped in and did that. I wrote him a letter. About 6 months later, I get a surprise letter from him. And basically the letter said, "Dan, even though we live in different parts of the country, we're still family. We're still close." And it meant a lot to me, because when he would come to town, if we were both playing in the same town, we made sure we got together. If he came to my town and where I was and he was playing, I would go see him. Always spend time in the dressing room. The guy was a huge influence. He was an idol. I looked up to him. But I have people sometimes in interviews say, "What was it like having Kenny Rogers for an uncle?" And I say to them, "Well, do you have an uncle?" "Yeah." "Well, that's what it was like." One guy said, "He didn't call you?" And I go, "Does your uncle call you?" "No." I go, "Well, mine doesn't either." But we love each other. And when we were together, it didn't, I can remember about 10 or 15 years ago. We were both in Northern California, and I went to see him. And he said, let's go find a room where we can visit. So we found this little quiet room and we sat for about 45 minutes. He was saying, what are you doing? And telling him what I was doing and talking about what he's doing. And we looked at each other after about 40 minutes, didn't say anything. And I said, well, I'm done. Are you? And he goes, yeah. So we pretty much caught up with everything since we'd seen each other last. So you know what? He was a huge influence. I miss him. And the last time we were together, he came to Newport Beach where I live on this farewell tour. And he said to me, he said, I hear you just had a #1 record. And I said, I did. And he said, I want to hear it and you need to get back out there and play. And I said, I'm doing an album right now.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as this album is finished and you're done out here, then I feel like I have an obligation to pick up the torch and carry on. And so, yeah, I released the double album last year called Life. I done called my old friend Bill Como, and we did Lesson in Love together. And I'm back in Nashville for the last 2 weeks, recording, doing press interviews like this one, and having a ball. And we're getting a new single ready. And so I'm carrying on. We're talking. There's talk right now about a tour. And in fact, a lot of Kenny's guys, Keith Bugas, his old road manager, and I had lunch the other day because Keith and I were roommates in California. He played in my band. We wrote songs together, and he went on to work with Kenny. And Keith said, look, the old crew's chomping to get out on the road. I'll take care of everything. So it looks like there could be a tour shaping up for the end of this year on through. And I said, I got about 5 good years to go out on the road and really pound it, because the road is I'm more concerned about leaving my wife and her not wanting to go on the road. But I promised her I'd get a tour bus and have a trailer on the back, cedar line like a closet. She could shop her way across America. So she's in. She mentioned shopping like any woman. She's in. So
yeah, she's ready for it, no doubt. Hey, let's break down Life, because I really enjoyed the album you guys put out, A Strange Definition of Love. And then, of course, Love is the Fire. Talk to me about just the making of it and getting in the studio to record it, and of course some great writers I'm sure you worked with, and of course the production value is fantastic. I thought you guys put out a great project.
Thank you. I wrote everything on that. I produced that album. I was under no time constraints because I'm an independent artist. And so it took me about 10 years. It's 19 songs, which was a real brave move to put a double album out in a singles market. But it got to a point where I just wanted these songs out in a way so I could write new stuff. And yeah, Craig T. Fall has always been like a musical soulmate and partner to me. We started way back in 1974 doing the first session we did. He and I played guitar, and Jeff Porcaro, Dave Holmgate, and Dave Page, who were Toto, played. So that was the first session I did in LA. So Craig T. Fall and I did this, co-produced this, put it together, and I took 10 years. I'd write some stuff and produce, and then I'd go enjoy life and come back. And like I said, I knew Kenny was in his final time on the road. And I knew when he came off the road, he wouldn't last a year or two, because he was used to the road and the audience. And so I knew I needed to prepare to go out and carry on. I've got sons who are great writers. So yeah, I just took my time. Finally, last year, it was due to be released 2 years ago in late March, and then Kenny passed, and I just couldn't. I told everybody, stop. I'm not releasing an album. I need time to heal from this, get past the shock. And so we released it, I don't remember, sometime late in 2020 or I don't know. I'm going through mental pause anymore. I can't remember anything. But we released it and it was out, and then I got a little restless and wanted to cut something else. So I called Bill Como and we did Lesson in Love. I put the video together, pulled a lot of footage. It turned out great. We're getting a lot of amazing support and response. It's having a big impact on people because it's a song about what a woman's going through contemplating terminating a pregnancy, abortion. And it just so happens that it's a hot subject now. It was not intentional. I wrote this song 12 years ago while I was on a 40-day fast, and I shelved it. And so I pulled it because I felt like I wanted to do an art piece. And that's why. And then after we did it, all of a sudden the topic becomes really hot. So
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the definitely unique record. First two relatives to the top 10 on Billboard's, I believe it was the adult contemporary singles chart at the same time. Unique, very, very cool to do something like that too at the same time, where you find relatives that actually can do that. I know Kenny had Coward of the County, and you did a lot of things with Hearts Under Fire. Talk about that distinction, because that's a pretty amazing feat to have in the music industry as far as relatives go.
Yeah, and it wasn't planned. I started making Looks Like Love Again was the hit, and Kenny had Coward of the County out, and we wound up the first two relatives ever in the Billboard Top 10 Adult Contemporary charts, which was cool. Another, it was like when the first edition broke up, he called Keith, who was in my band, and they were real close, and said, "Do you think you guys would back me up on 4 shows?" So I went out and played, my band did the first 4 shows with him after the first edition broke up. And we made $60 each that night. And guess what he went on to make? And I'm still making 6. I'm not even making that anymore. I'm working for free. Yeah, it was a great time, great moment. Hearts Under Fire was a groundbreaking album. I actually conned Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett into getting back together. They had not sang since they split up. It was,
wow.
And but I was writing with Delaney one night, and I thought, I was getting ready to do the Hearts Under Fire album. I called him Pappy, and I said, "Pappy, I was with Bonnie last night, and she wants to do the backgrounds on this new album if you'll sing with her." And he looked at me with a serious look, and he said, "Did she really say that?" I said, "I wouldn't lie to you." And he thought, he goes, "I'll do it, but if I find out you're lying to me, I'll kill you." So I called Bonnie the next night, and I went over and saw her, and I said, "I was with Pappy last night, and he's kind of teared up, and he wants to do the backgrounds on my new album if you'll sing with him." And she said the same thing. She goes, "Danny, did he really say that?" And I go, "Sis, I wouldn't lie to you." And she goes, "All right, I'll do it, but if I find out you're lying, I'll kill you." So my producer called it my death session. We dialed 9-1 and we're rating the other one when they saw each other. Worked out great. Burton Cummings from the Guess Who was on that album. Mark Lindsay from Paul Revere and the Raiders went through the kitchen finding percussion things. Hugh McDowell from ELO, the electric cello player, showed up at the studio in his girlfriend's VW Bug with the cello strapped to the top of it. It was a great time. Prince was also using the studio at the same time, so he'd be in the other room dancing to my stuff. Yeah, great album. I'm still proud of it today. Mm-hmm. Then I came to Nashville and did an album with MCA, and then went back to LA, and here I am.
Move it around. You're still at it, no doubt. Tell me about this one off of Hearts Under Fire, because I loved this one. I followed it for years. I Got the Fever. I thought that was just a great title, and a lot of great lyrics in that particular song. Tell me how that one came about.
Funny, you know what? I just wrote that song. We didn't write it about any. There's a song on that album called Lucy. I wrote about a girl I was going to church with who was kind of a player. But I got the fever, and then my old friend Gil Scott Herring heard it. And Gil Scott and Johnny Nash's wife drove all the way to Ventura, California one night just to hear me play and sing that song. But the cool thing was, while I was in the studio at Alpha Studios recording that, I walked out and there was a kitchen area off to the studio, and there was Prince waiting to come in for his time, dancing and I ran into him about a year later, and I said, "Hey, Prince, Dan Rogers." He goes, "I know, I got the fever." And he sang my song back to me, which was really a big deal for me, because Prince was brilliant.
It's one of the greatest of all time, no doubt. We'll take a quick break here on the what's that you're saying?
I'm glad you like that song. That brings back old memories.
I got another one off that record too. I'm gonna get to as we take a quick time out. Again, it's the great Dan Rogers here on the program. It's the Backstage Pass presented by Bangtail Whiskey and MitchMax.com. Also, Hank Jr. Productions. More to come here on the show. Quick time out. Hang tight. More with Dan Rogers here on the Backstage Pass. Hang tight. We're coming back.
The Bangtail pour is comprised of a sweet corn mash base. The front has a subtle sweetness and not too sharp. It has notes of a medium char or white oak for a smoky flavor in the middle, and the tail has a super smooth and warm finish.
Go behind the scenes with some of the biggest artists in music today with the Backstage Pass, powered by the SportsGuysPodcast.com. Join Brandon Morrill and his co-host Kirsty Krause, Jeff McMahon, as they talk to rising stars and legends about their music careers. Listen to their latest tracks and learn fun facts about the men and women behind the music you love. And be sure to tune into the Backstage Pass Monday through Friday from 3:30 to 6:30, powered by the SportsGuysPodcast.com. And welcome into the Backstage Pass. Hey, back here on the show again. Of course, a matinee special edition. We usually do that from 3:30 to 6:30 Monday through Friday. But I was like, vacation, I'm going to do some shows a little bit earlier and just get some more good stuff out there, too. Back with Dan Rogers. It is the Backstage Pass presented by our good friends over at Bangtail Whiskey and MitchMax.com for official Backstage Pass merchandise. And Henry Herrera, thank you for everything out of Florida. Hank Jr. Productions, podcasting, videography, and great photography company there too. So the other one I was going to touch on, Dan, too, from Hearts Under Fire was one I've been a big fan of a long time, and I'm sure this has a good story behind it. Companions. Tell me about that one.
My friend Steve Crossley from Oklahoma City was writing for Glenn Campbell at the time, and I've co-written at least one song on each album I've done with him. He's just one of those guys that we just clicked, and I have so much love and respect for him, and we write well together. Companions was a song he wrote, and Norton Buffalo, my old friend, God rest his soul, great harmonica player. We decided that we wanted to kind of be like around a campfire. Companions, it's sad how companions come and then go. Cut that song, very simple. Hugh McDowell on cello, Norton Buffalo on harp, and it was just one of those songs that worked. It was simple, but man, what a message. Steve is an amazing writer. And, like I said, another one of my musical soulmates, a guy that I go to. I don't co-write much anymore. I'm in Bill Como's studio. You see it behind me right now, and we're co-writing my next single together. But most of the time these days, I just want to get much art out of me as I can, so I don't co-write much with people anymore. But yeah, I'm glad you like that song. There's some great songs on that album.
There's some really good songs on that album, no doubt. Hey, speaking of Bill, you mentioned his name several times. What's it like just to have someone you consider a longtime friend and a great producer, too, at the same time, who understands the industry? That's one of the things I talk to a lot about artists here on the program, is just getting that right team behind you, that right producer, and, of course, the people that make it happen when they do the mix and mastering in the studio. How important it is to have that relationship with Bill, and I'm sure it makes projects a lot easier too.
I've known Bill. I met him at Lion's Share Studios in the 80s. I was in there working with Michael Omartian and John Guess and singing on Rod Stewart's Camouflage album. Donna Summer and I were hanging out. She was in there. Omartian was producing me, Donna Summer, Rod Stewart, Jermaine Jackson, and Debbie Boone all at the same time.
Wow.
A pretty cool environment. But I met Bill Como. He was one of those keyboard guys you go, someday I want to work with that guy. And it just so happened that I was sitting in Newport Beach. This last album was released. I hadn't cut anything in a year. I was getting antsy to do something, and I called Bill. We were friends on Facebook and talked often on the phone. And I said, Billy, I want to do an art piece. I'm no longer in the commercial music business trying to compete. I'm just an artist, and I want to do an art piece. So I sent this over to him, and I said, let's do a piano ballad here. And he just took it to town and killed it. And this was the first time I really got to hang with him in person. I'm out at his place in Spring Hill, Tennessee, in the woods somewhere. And I told the Uber driver coming out here, I said, if I hear banjos, we're turning around because I don't know where I'm at. It's a cool place. He's got a 7-acre farm here with horses and ducks, chickens, and the whole thing. But so we've been getting a chance to really just hang out and make some music together. I've been doing interviews in between sessions. Bill is, I could go all the way back to his credits. It's phenomenal. There's not enough time to list them. Gold records on the wall. Betty Davis Eyes, he arranged and played on that. Oh, Sherry, he co-wrote with Steve Perry. Wow. We were sharing stories the other day of the 2 albums he did with Leonard Skinner. The list goes on and on and on of the people he's played with. So we kind of work at each other's at the same level in the business. And we work beautiful together. This new song is going to be great. So, it's just another one of those times in my life I get to work with people that I admire and respect. they admire and respect me. So, yeah.
Two-way street, no doubt. I love that.
Oh,
Speaking of when that single came out for you guys, you mentioned you wrote that years back for Lesson in Love.
mhm.
Great story to tell, and so many different versions of that come out that like you said, a young woman who's having to make that tough choice in life about a pregnancy. But man, you guys told a great story with a great song, man. I really commend you on a great piece of work. It really is fantastic.
Thanks. The song is about a girl having an abortion, but it's written from the standpoint of a man having empathy for watching her, almost as if it were her dad or grandfather or something. And I wanted to do this. We did a focus group before we released it to 50 people, ages 13-year-old girls
Hmm.
to 75-year-old grandfathers. And we've not had one negative comment. It has impacted each one of them. And I've said all along, I said this to Bill, I said, if one woman sees this video and hears this song who's contemplating abortion and decides not to do it and have the child and then falls in love with her child, the
Hmm.
song will have served a higher purpose. And I'm proud of that. So, yeah.
I love the fact that you mentioned on your website too about how you kind of had God talking to you and you kind of felt like you just had to cut this song. Kind of talk to me about we get those type of feelings sometimes, those emotions that even go through us, and we often wonder, is this the right choice to make? Because life is full of choices, but just faith sometimes brings us through the things we're supposed to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I shelved the song. I wrote it on a 40-day fast 12 years ago. And I shelved it because of the topic. And then I just wanted to do an art piece. And what have I got to lose at my age? I have nothing left to prove. I've done more than most people and not as much as some of the bigger stars,
Hmm.
but I've been right there on stage with them. So, but I thought, what have I got to lose? I don't have a record deal. I don't have to worry about offending. As long as the song, I feel like it's sincere and it won't offend anybody, I'm going to cut it. So it was just one of those songs I pulled out of the box. I've got
Hmm.
this song box of 200 songs in my closet nobody's ever heard. And I go back and I pulled it and I did it, and the timing was right. It just all fell together organically, which
Hmm.
lets me know because about a year ago, I started getting this. It kept coming up in my thoughts. It was almost like God going, "Hey, listen to me here."
Hmm.
Uh, and I cut it, and the topic wasn't so hot and controversial then as it is now. And first thing my publicist said was, it's kind of a controversial topic. And I said, well, let's put it out there and see what happens. And I walked the storyline straight up the middle so it doesn't offend anyone. Take from it what you will.
Hmm.
And so I'm just thrilled that the people out there were thinking the way that I was and hear it. I mean, this is a video that when you watch it once, you have to watch it 3 or 4 times and tell people about it. And that's what's happening. So I'm really, really grateful to the people that have heard it and that loved it and shared it. And I'm very proud of this song. It's a good art piece.
Yeah.
I don't write songs to try to get back on the radio. I don't
Yeah.
sit in a room with co-writers and try to write clever little ditties. I'm done with that. I did that.
Hmm.
I'm just an artist. And if I can't express myself artistically, then I shouldn't say anything. That's the way I feel.
No, it's a great way to put it too. And like you said, it's been there, done that too. But just putting out songs that can be impactful for somebody to listen to and can resonate with, feeling happy or sad, or take from it, as you mentioned, what they will. Back to the Life album, real quick. I thought another one on there that you guys put out that was definitely a song for me. Just One of Those Days. Talk about the
Mhm.
backstory of that one.
You know, was just picked up a guitar one night. I was feeling really down and blue. All of us artists go through that. Is it over? It's done. And I picked up the guitar one night late and sat down, and that song fell out of me. And during the writing of it, I put the guitar down to go use the restroom, and I turned the light on, looked in the mirror, and I saw my father. That's why the line in that song says,
Hmm.
"All I see in the," I forget the line that says, "When I look in the mirror, all I see is my dad."
Hmm.
Uh, but that song's impacted a lot of men. And right after I wrote it, I cut it, and I went to Vegas to do a show for a friend of mine that was producing this variety show. And I did that song, and I looked out my audience, and grown men were crying. That song is about a man that just says, "My best days are behind me,"
Hmm.
and totally vulnerable and open. And that was my first #1 record. That's the song Kenny heard
Hmm.
about that he wanted to hear. And then Love is a Fire was #1 for 7 weeks. So yeah, I'm glad you like that song because I can't wait when I go out and play live to play that song because I've done it live once, and I don't think I did it on that PBS special that I did.
No, I've been listening to a lot of your stuff for a long time, no doubt, and that was one of the best albums I got a chance to stream and definitely just kind of listen to and break down track by track. Also off of it too, off of Life 2, which came out in 2020. Strange Definition of Love was one of my favorites that kind of told another great story out there too. So as I pick apart these songs and kind of go through them, there's always a good story for every one of them, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to say who I wrote that song for. But needless to say, we were very close. And in the end, my thoughts were, you got a strange definition of love. My friend Patrick Dollahan, who's a great lyricist, came down to my boat in Marina Del Rey, and we sat on the back of the boat and wrote that song. I had all this electric guitar equipment on this 40-foot sailboat I had, and it was just, I would strum and the whole dock would shake, but it inspired me, the riff, to write that song. So Pat and I knocked that song out. I remember saying to him, I want to be on the water in 15 minutes out of here. Let's get this done. And he wrote it. But I'm glad you liked that. Yeah, it has kind of a dark, seductive.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she knows I wrote it about her, but I'm one of those guys. Hey, I was before Taylor Swift writing songs about people that wronged me. Right?
I love that too. That's what you can pick apart songs and find different things and tunes that you really enjoy. And sometimes, like I said, I dig very deep into to lyrics too. Hey, talk about this because I know the industry's changed so much, and we see all these reality shows out there, Idol, The Voice, and things like that. America's Got Talent, and of course now I was just in Nashville for the CRS event and just having all these different conversations with people and how the industry's changed. Do you think, and just kind of an opinionated question here, do you think it's, I guess, changed for the good, changed with the times? What's your opinion on how it's evolved over the last maybe 10 or 15 years?
Well, I think that answer can be skewed because of my age. So do I feel like it's changed for the better? Who knows? I don't listen to a whole lot of radio anymore because that's the commercial music industry. Those publishers are telling their artists the kind of songs they need to write to get on the radio. I don't subscribe to that. I did that for years. I was a staff writer, me, Bob Marley, and Johnny Nash in the early 70s for Cayman Music. And I came to Nashville in '85, signed MCA. And so, yeah, I sat in publishing rooms and tried to write. But I don't write that way anymore. To me, it's not being true to my artistic self. Do I think the industry's changed for the better? I don't know, and I really don't care because I'm in the Dan Rogers business. I'm not in the music business. I just happen to make music, and I think that it's changed the way it should. There's a lot of young singer-songwriters that are killing it. I applaud them. Go for it. American Idol, those shows gave young artists hope. So I say absolutely all that is for the better. But for me personally, I want to write songs nobody's ever heard and doesn't sound like anything you've heard, like Lesson in Love. Mm-hmm. You go listen to that song and you haven't. And I tell you, as a writer, one of the things I'm the most proud about in that song, it's 3 verses in a row, a bridge, 2 verses, a vocal solo, another verse. There's 6 verses in a bridge in that song. There's no repeating chorus, but it worked. So as a writer, I'm real proud of that. That song. I don't know. It's touching a lot of people. Sometimes when I listen to it again after 3 or 4 weeks, I go, man, we did it. We nailed it.
Yeah. And I'm sure the next one too, you guys mentioned you're already working on that one too at the same time. It's going to be just as hot as the one in January too at the same time. We'll take one last time out. We'll come back. One of our favorite segments we call Rapid Fire here on the program. We get to know Dan more on a personal level with some little series of funny questions, favorite movies, favorite cartoons growing up, things like that. Binge watching TV, favorite food. We'll do all that here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We get to a couple of comments here. It is the Backstage Pass presented by Bangtail Whiskey and our good friends at MitchMax.com and Hank Jr. Productions. Hang tight. Get a word in. Pay some bills. Coming right back.
The Bangtail pour is comprised of a sweet corn mash base. The front has a subtle sweetness and not too sharp. It has notes of a medium char or white oak for a smoky flavor in the middle, and the tail has a super smooth and warm finish.
Go behind the scenes with some of the biggest artists in music today with the Backstage Pass, powered by the SportsGuysPodcast.com. Join Brandon Morrill and his co-host Kirsty Krause, Jeff McMahon, as they talk to rising stars and legends about their music careers. Listen to their latest tracks and learn fun facts about the men and women behind the music you love. And be sure to tune into the Backstage Pass Monday through Friday from 3:30 to 6:30, powered by the SportsGuysPodcast.com. And welcome into the Backstage Pass. And back here on the show again with the great Dan Rogers here on the Backstage Pass, again presented by Bangtail Whiskey, MitchMax.com, and our good friends over in Hank Jr. Productions. Don't forget, coming up at 2:30 today, one of the hottest artists on Big Machine's label, Drake Milligan, is going to stop by here on the program. And then tomorrow, she does a lot of great work with Smack Songs. Kylie Morgan is going to drop by here as we finish out the week on St. Patrick's Day tomorrow and take about 10 days off to recoup and come back March 28th, Nashville recording artist David Nail here on the Backstage Pass, no doubt. Dan, we certainly appreciate the time, everything today. So this is kind of a thing we call rapid fire, so I'm going to get right to it. Favorite Kenny song of all time for you?
Lady.
What was it?
Lady.
Okay, I love it. That's the one I had in mind. I was singing in my head as I went to commercial, no doubt. Favorite go-to food or beverage when you're having one of those rough days?
You know, I drink mostly water these days, but I got to tell you, being in Nashville for 2 weeks, I drink sweet tea every time I go out, and I love it.
It's good.
So, in Nashville's got some great restaurants. You know, I eat pretty healthy these days. I'm 69 years old, and I'm in really good shape for 69. I live in a very healthy environment, so I try to eat very clean, but I eat a lot of chicken and fish.
That's what I've gone to now. I'm kind of cutting back on some of the processed stuff and the red meat. So like the chicken and fish, I've been going that kind of not the keto diet, but just more of that lean stuff that I can mix with the workouts and all that kind of stuff too. So definitely it's a good thing, as we always tell everybody to eat healthy out there. All right. If you're a coffee drinker, Dan, what goes in the coffee?
Got to have it sweet and blonde like my wife, you know. I like the cream and sugar in it. Bill Como's been making me some jet fuel every time I stopped drinking coffee about 3 months ago because I do this thing where I'll just stop coffee, stop all sugar, stop sodas, and I get to feeling really well. And then all of a sudden I go out on the road and I'll start drinking coffee. But Bill Como makes this stuff that makes my teeth itch. I think it could be used as jet fuel. So that's what I'm running on now. I haven't had any breakfast or anything to eat. I'm still working off the jet fuel he fed me.
I'm like you, getting lunch as soon as we're wrapped up here, no doubt. Let's talk about this one. I call it the pizza question. So I actually took my daughter out for a pizza last night, and she loves it, and like cheese, whatever goes on it. But if it's a pizza just for Dan Rogers, what toppings go on there?
Man, you got to have Canadian bacon, pineapple, black olives. You know, you got to have that. And I know every Italian fan I have right now is out there going, oh, God. You know, I can't imagine being Italian and seeing somebody put pineapple, stewed tomatoes, black olives, and Canadian bacon. That's my favorite. Although I've got a place in Newport Beach that makes a barbecue chicken pizza that'll you just slap yourself. It's so good.
Oh, man, I love that. All right, best advice you could give a young artist getting into the industry today, what would it be?
Get a job. Don't count on Spotify to make you any money. Best advice I could give them would be find your passion with it. Stay with that. If you're making music to try to get on the radio and make money and be famous, you're making it for the wrong reasons. I wrote my first hit when I was 15. All I wanted to do was write songs. It was my passion. And that I've never changed. I'm a commercial songwriter, but I've never written songs for other. I've only let 4 people in my life record my songs, and that was Kenny, because he and I wrote this. I wrote the song, he wrote a bridge to it, recorded it with the first edition. Johnny Nash, who I had a big hit with my merry-go-round, the follow-up to I Can See Clearly Now. Dottie West, her last hit, If It Takes All Night, Larry Gatlin produced, and Glenn Campbell's song called Hang On Baby that I wrote with Steve Harden and threw in the garbage can because I didn't like it, and literally pulled the song out of the garbage can, took it downstairs to Glenn and played it. And Glenn called me and said, don't you ever throw another song away. You've got the most expensive garbage can I've ever known. So those 4 people have cut my songs, but I've never been a guy to cut songs and send them out and try to get other people to record them. I've probably been my own worst enemy like that, but I can tell you this much. I've always made music for the right reasons and always will. I'm a real artist. And the day I lose my feel and my desire to be an artist, I'll stop. With every song I do, Lesson in Love, I said to my wife, if this could be the last song I ever do. And if it is, I'm going out on a good note. And I said to Bill Como yesterday while we're in the studio here, this might be the last song I do. And if I do, I want it to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So every song I do, as far as I'm concerned, could be my last one. And when John Lennon sent me a message at 15, I'd written the most beautiful song he'd ever heard in his life. John set the bar for me. I tell everybody I started at the top and worked my way down in the song in the business. The people send you a message. You've written the greatest song he's ever heard. That means something. So I took it very serious. So yeah, I have a very serious artistic approach.
I love that. I love the artistic approach, no doubt. It's unlike anything people have heard. If you hadn't heard Lesson in Love, go get it across all the digital platforms. All right, we'll end it on this one. Last binge-watching program for Dan Rogers, whether it be a series or television program, what's the last thing you binge-watch?
Dude, who isn't watching Yellowstone, right? But 1883, I'll tell you this much. Tim and Faith did a great job in 1883. So both of those series, my wife and I have watched twice. They're just great TV. I'm a big Taylor Sheridan fan. The guy, I don't know when he sleeps. He's so busy writing hit TV shows and movies. So yeah, it would definitely be, I'm a Yellowstone guy.
I'll tell you what, it's a great show. In 1883, the prequel is as damn good as that other one is too. At the same time, I've got to check them out. I'm going to do that too at the same time. And folks, you got to check out Lesson in Love across all the digital platforms, and more to come from this great icon in music. Of course, Kenny Rogers, and passed on down to Dan. And be sure and visit him at Dan Rogers, DANN Rogers.com. For the latest, and of course the tour dates out there, and grab some merch while you're at it. I always say for our artists here on our program. Dan, appreciate the time. Looking forward to connecting somewhere here in 2022 when the new music comes out. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you had a great time.
Thank you. I had a great time. You're awesome. Love your show.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, no doubt. And best of luck with the tour. And of course, just carrying on the legacy of the great uncle there, and God rest his soul. Again, Lesson in Love across all the platforms. We're back today at 1:30 with Drake Milligan. Thanks to Bangtail Whiskey, Mitch Max, and Hank Jr. Productions. We'll see you guys later on this afternoon, and Kylie Morgan tomorrow on the Backstage Pass. Hang tight. More to come here as we end the week. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. We'll see you soon.